Would all those who are willing and able please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Grant us, O Lord, light to our understanding, prudence in our investigating, foresight in our planning, sincerity in our deliberating, the grace to follow truth in our judgment. Help us to be moved in our decision, neither by fear nor by self-interest, and to do our work faithfully. May we respect the authority vested in us. And may we use in our directives for the common good and for thy honor and glory. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Present.
Commissioner Regovich.
Here.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Here. Thank you. Okay, we are our first public comment portion, but I'd like to invite, we have a certificate here recognizing Black History Month. So Commissioner Plechnik, you want to take the point on this one, sir?
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to make a motion to approve the resolution declaring the month of February 2023 as Black History Month in Lake County.
I will second that motion.
Discussion.
Mr. President, I can't begin to express the gratitude that we have for the leaders in Lake County that help us to recognize Black history, not just in February, but all year round, and make such a difference in their community outreach, their faith, and their charity every single day for all Lake Countyans. I know that we have the president of the Lake County NAACP with us here today, Deacon Jones, past President Bishop Maribel, and so many other members of the clergy and the NAACP who've come together to recognize this important time in Lake County and across the country and, yeah, the world. So it's amazing to see this turnout in our little meeting. And I express great gratitude, not just for the amazing work that you've done, but for the work that you are so pledged to do and that we are pledged to do with you in 2023 and in every year that comes. This is important for us to remember. The work of Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. is not over. But we've done so much together and we have so much hope for the future. I believe Lake County is a model for what the world should be. But our work continues and we will never stop. So, Mr. President, thank you for giving me the opportunity to make the motion because I know that each and every one of us is honored to recognize Black History Month in Lake County.
Very good. Mr. Regovich, anything you want to answer?
I'd like to echo those sentiments and well said.
And on that subject of echoing, I would like to echo and amplify one very important point in my life and refer to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, because it is the brothers and sisters in Christ that I have found that has brought us together and a bridge of common language, common interests that has been so helpful. And that is what I have found working with our friends here in Lake County on issues of a very sensitive and delicate nature very often. So with that, Madam Clerk, roll call please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. And as my colleague so often reminds me, it's not official until after we've done the presentation we get the picture. So folks, please come on up and join us.
Deacon Jones, colleagues.
Okay, you're all part of the family. So. How about this? All those that are willing and able. I'll keep using that line, please. Any other chairs?
Why don't you join me, Deacon?
Okay.
Council. Bishop, why don't you go on the other side of me? We'll even it out a little bit.
There you go. Coming, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Deacon. This is yours. For the NAACP.
Thank you again. Okay, moving on, we are in our first public comment portion. Anyone in the audience? Sir? Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Massey, 8196 Rainbow Drive, Lobbyist for Citizens. As a follow-up to a subject I was speaking to you about at the last Commissioner meetings, happens to do with the biosolid lagoons. And I found out that human waste being composted down in Perry County, and I wondered what was happening in Lake County. So I started on my research, my mission to find out. I did go to the, not knowing where to start, I went to the Soil and Water Commission, spoke to Mr. Dan Donaldson. I want to give him a big shout out publicly for taking the time to educate me on what they do. He was very, very kind, very generous with his time. He then sent me to Tim Gorley, who is employed at the Department of Utilities, and I want to thank him also for educating me. What I found out so far, I don't have the absolute answer, and what I'm trying to, the ultimate goal is to find out if human waste is being used as fertilizer on crops in Lake County. I know that it is being done in Ohio, but no one can tell me absolutely one way or not or another if it is being used in Lake County. So that's my mission, to find that out. What Tim told me was, from the county's perspective, the composted waste is put directly into the landfill. It is not resold as fertilizer to the farmers in Lake County from the county. But I was also told that there are cities that have their own treatment plants. And the individual that I need to speak to next would be Ron Graham at the Department of Health. So that's my next move, is to contact Ron, have a meeting with him so that I can educate myself and also the people in Lake County what really does happen, and is the human waste being used as fertilizer. In Europe, that practice has been stopped. And when I asked the question, well, why is it being stopped in Europe but not here? Interesting statement was, well, in Europe they have higher standards than we have here in this country. And I found that to be a little disconcerting, but we'll see where it goes. I'll be back at the second public comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I do see Adam Lipke from the Health District, so perhaps we could save you a few steps here. Adam, did you want to comment on any of this, if you don't mind coming up to the microphone? Our viewing audience just, I'm sure, is enthralled as to what we're doing with...
Nothing more exciting than biosolids. I did, Brian asked me that question. I did contact my team because I was 99% sure of the answer. But right now, no biosolids are being used in Lake County from human waste on farms. It does happen in some of the more rural counties, but here, that is, to our knowledge, that's not happening in Lake.
Thank you for hopefully putting that one to bed. Thank you, Mr. Massey. And yes, I'm choking back any number of bad jokes on this subject.
I appreciate that.
Please, anyone else in the audience want to save us? Sir? Yep. The floor is yours, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. Brian White, Painesville Township, Lake County. First question is can council consider having at least one meeting a month, maybe in the evening? Many Lake County residents work, myself included. I haven't been able to make the last two because of work commitments. I had to make special arrangements today. maybe allowing the people who work during the day have a chance to speak to this commission would be helpful to us. Second question, I understand the tax increase was rescinded, but my question is why didn't council consider putting it on the ballot to vote for the people? Have the people vote on that. Third question, where can I find Lake County ordinance? I went on the website, I found Willowick, I found Paynesville, I found all the city ordinances, laws, but I couldn't find the ones directly for the commission or Lake County. And then the last one is just a comment, is I know you have a very difficult job. I know Rich Regovich, as the former mayor of Willowick. It's a delicate balance you have between Lake County and the people of Lake County. You have to maintain the roads, infrastructure, but that's just such a delicate balance, and I understand your guys' position. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, legal, we don't, okay, ordinances, we're statutory.
Yes, Lake County does not have ordinances per se. Lake County, as all Ohio counties, follow Title III of the Ohio Revised Code. And there are general statutes as well as specific statutes outlining the powers of any Board of Commissioners, which is what we call a creature of statute.
Thank you. All right, anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? All right. Madam Clerk, continuing on with the agenda.
In the Utilities Department, resolution transferring appropriations within the Lake County Department of Utilities Solid Waste Project Fund 597.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution increasing appropriations and transferring cash within Lake County Department of Utilities Sewer Operating Fund and Project Fund 596, Project 456S, Dodd Chimney Ridge Sunshine Acres Facilities Improvements.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. President?
Sir.
For the record, no biosolid lagoons are involved in this project.
Delighted. Hate to be accused of sneaking one in. Madam Clerk, save us. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution transferring appropriations and transferring cash within Lake County Department of Utilities Sewer Project Fund 596 and Sewer Operating Fund.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution transferring appropriations and transferring cash within Lake County Department of Utilities Sewer Project Fund 596 and Sewer Operating Fund.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution transferring appropriations and transferring cash within Lake County Department of Utilities Water Project Fund 595 and Water Operating Fund.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution transferring appropriations and transferring cash within Lake County Department of Utilities Water Project Fund 595 and Water Operating Fund.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution transferring appropriations and transferring cash within Lake County Department of Utilities Water Project Fund 595 and Water Operating Fund.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Resolution
accepting a 3-year maintenance surety in the amount of $2,231.74 for 5921 Shandell Boulevard Sanitary Sewer Extension Job Number 22-30 in the City of Mentor.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution increasing appropriations and transferring cash within Lake County Department of Utilities Solid Waste Operating Fund and Project Fund 597.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In Job and Family Services Department, resolution approving Lake County Department of Job and Family Services vouchers, date of warrant February 10th, 2023, in the amount of $89,519.51.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In the Finance Department, resolution approving payment of bills as listed on the Commissioner's Approval Journal in the amount of $571,462.48.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution approving purchase orders as listed on the Commissioner's Purchase Order Approval Journal in the amount of $64,547.59.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution increasing appropriations for various general and non-general fund accounts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution transferring cash and an appropriation within general and non-general fund accounts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. All right, moving on to our departmental reports. Utilities.
No report today.
Thank you, sir. And County Administrator.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just very briefly, and I've touched upon this to the board in some emails. The Port Authority, the Lake Development Authority, with some concurrence with Jim Gills, County Engineer Gills, we're working on creating what's called a Transportation Improvement District via the Ohio Department of Transportation. Basically, this is a board that we would need to create, a 5-person board, to assist in garnering additional ODOT funds. It's not a large amount, but any amount's a good amount locally to invest in our infrastructure. So I'm going to be working with the Development Authority on getting some ideas for the creation of the board in accordance with the revised code. So you will see more information forthcoming. But at the end of the day, it's a necessary step to even be able to apply for these funds. So I'll work with the LDA and Mr. Gills moving forward on that. And I also know, just as an update, the Finance Department is working on the budget hearing schedule, beginning in the next couple of weeks. I think as of this morning, I think we have 7 budget hearings scheduled beginning the 2nd or 3rd week of February. We'll be finalizing those over the next few days. So thank you.
Very good. Anything for Administrator?
I'm sure that our mayors and managers will step up to be on that board.
Yes, they will.
Madam Clerk.
Yes, and I wanted to mention that once the dates are finalized for the budget hearings, I will post them on the website. And also I wanted to mention that the next Commissioners meeting is Thursday, February 9th at 10 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anything for our clerk? All right. Legal.
No reports, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to old business. Do we have any old business to for the board? Any old business? Hearing none, moving on to new business. Any new business?
Mr. President,
Sir.
I had the honor yesterday to attend Concord Township trustee meeting and present Trustee Dondorfer and Trustee Lucci with a certificate for completing the Ohio Township Association Leadership Academy. It's kind of a big deal for the Township Association. It takes about a year of classes and stuff to get through it, and they both completed it and did well. And actually, the Township Trustee Lucci is continuing on to the next level with that. And also, I got to meet with Wally Siegel yesterday and tour the Perry area and all the things that they put in and the things they're looking at, and was pretty good for me to get the detail on a lot of that stuff coming from the opposite end of the county, so I appreciate his time with that.
Excellent, excellent.
Mr. President?
Sir?
As we continue our celebration of Black History Month, I just want to acknowledge the partnership between the Lake County NAACP and Lake Tran, recently publicized in the News Herald, of how we're reserving a front seat on all of the buses in memory of Rosa Parks and her act of defiance in the civil rights movement that, as we all know, changed Alabama, the United States, and then the world. So I'm grateful that we're able to acknowledge that historic moment together, and wanted to give a hat tip to Lake Tran for working with our NAACP to make that happen.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so yesterday we had our Region 13. It has to do with the One Ohio solution for the opioid litigation, the first tranche of money, shall we say, coming back from litigation. We did adopt the bylaws for our region. I'm proud to say that that has been a model document for the state. We work closely, and I'm going to do a shout out to Judy Moran. She was an absolute excellent partner on this, and our own Nina Germano. She was our primary liaison with the assigned legal counsel from the Ohio Attorney General's office. It was as smooth a process as I think I've seen in government in a long time. So that was a pretty good move. Our region, actually Catherine Whittington is now, has moved up to actually representing the state board of all of our regions. So that she is from Ashtabula County. Casey Kozlowski has agreed to come on board as our president, and I've been appointed vice president, and Judy Moran is our secretary. So we've got some good, strong representation going on. Some of the topics of discussion, though, that they did want to be brought before this board had to do with grant policy. What's under consideration is, do we wait for the state level to discuss what types of policy they would like to see, and then see how we can adopt it to local? Do we want to do a completely independent document? I think there'd be some wisdom in waiting to see what the state comes back with, if for no other reason, compliance purposes, and then see if we can tailor it to our specific needs. Region 13 is comprised of Ashtabula, Lake, Jug, and Portage counties. So that would be my recommendation, to just see where the state's at. I know we have a number of points of interest, and then we'll see how that fits in. One of the things has to do with projects. Again, these grant policies are what organizations are going to be funded for, benefit for individual communities as well as those 4 counties. This has to do with projects and how we're going to proceed and advance projects up to the state level for funding. If there's an interest out there, you can take a look at oneohiofoundation.com. There's going to be continuing updates regarding the state. And one of the topics of discussion was grant writing, who's going to be doing it. Part of the discussion had to do with, as a request for proposal is put out, if anyone wishing to submit would also have to be providing the grant writing, so that we are not burdened with the added cost of authoring those types of documents. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them as best I can. All right, moving on. We do have our upcoming budget hearing starting on February 14th at 12 and 1, to be immediately followed by our commissioners meeting at 2. This will be broadcast live, and we've heard the community loud and clear that they want to see openness and transparency. So stand by. You're about to see the most detailed, opened budget hearings in the history of Lake County. We're going to be limiting them to 1-hour blocks of time, and if we need more than an hour, we will schedule a part 2, 3, and 4 as needed. So again, starting February 14th, and our first 2 presenters will be our prosecutor's office and our sheriff's department. And is there any other new business to come before this board? Hearing none, moving on to our second public comment portion. Mr. Music. Thank you, Randy.
John Music, 45 Coventry Drive, Painesville Township. It was mentioned by you, Commissioner Hamercheck, about all the grants and all this. All I want to say is, please do not forget the seniors here in Lake County. We've gone over this. I always believe in transparency, oversight, and accountability. And the thing about it is, the seniors here in Lake County need help. And, right now, it's 1 out of 4 people in Lake County are seniors, and they predict by 2030 census, it'll be 1 out of 3. There's many seniors. I live where there's a lot of seniors, and so many people are hurting. So please do not, when you start giving grants out and all this other stuff, do not forget the seniors here in Lake County, because they do need help. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, I believe you had your hand up.
Betsy Phillips, 9148 Timothy in Kirtland. I just stand to reiterate the questions that the gentleman asked. It appears that he took a day off work to ask you questions and not a single one was answered. So I'm going to repeat his questions as I heard them, which was, the first one, he asked about ordinances. Well, I don't think he needed a correction on his terminology. All he was asking was where he can read them. The answer should be online somewhere, because when you come to these meetings, as we know, we get the agenda, but these are the titles. Where is the bulk of the document that you're voting on? I think that, in my opinion, that was the gentleman's question, and he was saying that most communities have their records online where he can read something other than the title. So I'd like to repeat that question for him, because I don't know the answer either. I haven't perused all the county website to that level. So is there a spot online where one can read the bulk of the documents that you're voting on?
If I may, Commissioner.
If you please, thank you.
Let me preface it, ma'am, please.
Yes, sir.
To the extent anyone took offense to the way I answered that last question, I certainly didn't.
It wasn't offensive, it just didn't answer what I felt his question was.
Okay.
Where can he read the documents?
Fair enough. I did reference the Ohio Revised Code, which is on the internet. You can find it there. Now, one thing I did not mention, though, obviously the board acts through its resolutions. So, resolutions, I don't know that they're online. They are online, according to Madam Clerk Bell. Would be on the Commissioner's website.
Yes, there's tabs on the left for each year going back the last 5 years or so. And if you click on the year and the date of the meeting, all the resolutions from that meeting are available.
Is there an opportunity to read the body of the legislation or the resolution before you vote on it?
Those are posted online the day before.
Ahead, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just the title, but the whole.
The whole thing is, yes.
Awesome. Okay, and the second question, I didn't hear a response to his question about the possibility of any night meetings. And I didn't hear a response or any discussion about why there was not a discussion about bringing some of the monetary issues to a vote of the people. So I hope those two items can have some further discussion. Thank you.
So if I can take some things in due order, I believe the reference was to, correct me, sir, if I don't say this correctly, villages, cities, being able to see ordinances. Please keep in mind you have a former councilman, mayor, former councilman, former councilman. The term ordinance has specific meaning to us. There was no disrespect intended to you. And the reason I turned to legal was to give you a proper legal response from somebody who has Esquire after his name. So I just thought that was the proper, respectful thing to do. So ma'am, I regret if I've offended you, but I'm trying to be as precise and thorough as possible. Regarding due consideration for evening meetings, we can talk about that. We've talked about it in the past. The suggestion had been off-site. One of the site locations that we wanted to take advantage of was the fairgrounds, because there's a new facility there. There was some thought of doing that. I realize that comes as a bit of a surprise to you. You might have heard of something called COVID. That kind of goofed us up. Fair Board didn't want us in the building. So there are a number of things that are problematic with keeping this facility open after hours, of how do we secure things. We have a wonderful deputy there, but there's only one of him. So there's a number of factors that would have to be taken into that calculation. Regarding the sales tax, I'll look back to legal. Did we or did we not follow the law, sir? I want to emphasize, did we or did we not follow the law?
This board did follow the law with regard to that proposal, yes.
Thank you. And one other thing that was said that I did make a note of, and our engineer is not here, so I did not want to address this. The Board of County Commissioners do not maintain roads. That is a function of local municipalities, the county engineer, Ohio Department of Transportation. So if we remain silent on that, again, out of respect to our engineer, it was, I think, a reasonable reason to be silent. Ma'am, again, I apologize if you did not hear responses, but I hope that you're satisfied with the explanations of why there were no responses. So with that, Mr. Massey, you've been very patient.
And Brian Massey, 8196 Rainbow Drive. The topic is the Budget Commission. You know that I've spoken before the commissioners on the Budget Commission, and I wanted to make sure that currently, it is my opinion that the current Budget Commission has basically been neutralized by a decision on a Supreme Court ruling. I was going to ask one more time for that, but as luck would have it, I would like to thank Mr. Hackman for bringing that to me this morning without even being asked. So I appreciate that very much. It's very kind for the transparency. The reason that I'm concerned about the Budget Commission is that they are, as my understanding, they are the watchdog for the average taxpayers to make sure that there's not excessive taxation by the political subdivisions. And as I have attended a couple of the budget meetings, they've basically been nothing more than just rubber stamps for whatever the political subdivision submits to them. And this is not generally true in other counties. So Lake is a bit unique in how our Budget Commission approaches things. I'd like to publicly thank Auditor Chris Galloway for his concern. He is, along with Treasurer Mike Zern and the prosecutor, they comprise of our Budget Commission, but Auditor Galloway is trying to take some steps at the legislative level at the state to try to once and for all get the state to really define for all of the counties what really is the role of the Budget Commission, so that there's no, let's say, individual interpretations by the local prosecutor. So I thank him for doing that. I'm also looking into the possibility, the Ohio Revised Code, Section 570527, talks about the ability to add average citizens onto that Budget Commission. So I have spoken, or I have communicated rather, with Ross McDonald of the Board of Elections, and he is he'll be talking to the prosecutor to see what he can tell me about that. So I'm pretty passionate about this Budget Commission because I'm extremely concerned about this excessive taxation that I see held by all of the political subdivisions. There's nothing that the commissioners can do at this point in time. I'm just bringing up to speed as far as what we at Lobbyers for Citizens are trying to do to help the citizens of the county. Thank you very much. And again, thank you, Mr. Hackman.
If I may respond to that, I too was of the same opinion you are, that the Budget Commission had more authority than they apparently do. Our prosecutor, I believe, I'm going to look to legal, is the final authority on legal decisions in Lake County, and I think that's been upheld by the Attorney General and other precedents and other courts. But if I could just add, even if 2 citizens were added to it, they would have to follow the same guidelines. Oh, and I do see we have our prosecutor in attendance, and he's standing, so I'm going to take the hint. We've got the man himself. So, Prosecutor Colson, if you'd care to address this, sir.
Sure. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, please come. we're a little more flexible at this part of the discussion here, so.
Yeah, the Budget Commission is a complicated thing, so I'm going to try to spend a few minutes to try to explain it. The Budget Commission is the watchdog to make sure that under certain circumstances, certain tax levies, that they are needed by the municipality or the political subdivision. But the Budget Commission is a creature of statute, state law, the Ohio Revised Code. And the General Assembly has said, state law says, that there are certain levies in which the Budget Commission can't reduce. And it lists those levies, A through E, in those levies. And it says the Budget Commission has no authority whatsoever to reduce levies. And the first one, under A, is levies outside the 10 mil limitation. It's right in the statute. So Budget Commissions, by statute, by the law that creates them, have no authority whatsoever to reduce that levy. What the Budget Commission does with those levies is make sure the proper amount is collected. That is, they do look at the tax reduction factor, they do make sure that we are collecting the proper amount on that levy. Not too much. We're collecting the proper amount, and that's what the Budget Commission does. If it makes it look like it's a rubber stamp, it's because we have such a darn good auditor and past auditors who make sure that the proper amount is there. And we look at the proper amount and it's approved. So it's a creature of statute. There are some levies, inside mills, there are some other levies which the Budget Commission could reduce the amount collected, but not outside 10 mil limitations. Now, some counties have in fact tried to do that, a few, in violation of the law. And they tried to hang their hat, and this is where you get the Supreme Court comes in. They tried to hang their hat on another section. There's one specifically said, outside 10 mil limitations, can't, it's mandatory, you have to prove them just as they were passed. But some counties have said, well, there's some general language saying that you have to have a budget that is approved in it. And the Supreme Court said, time out, people. It's very clear. The Ohio Supreme Court, which interprets all the laws in Ohio, says that if you have a levy that was an outside 10 mil outside the 10 mil limitation levy, and it was adopted by a vote of the people, that is proper per se, and you can't reduce it. And so the Supreme Court has just enforced the statute. And so if there is any county that is reducing an outside 10 mil limitation that has been approved by the voters, they're doing it illegally. Now, I have no problem with increasing the size of the commission. I think more heads are always good, but that won't affect anything, because it's the state legislature that's going to have to change it if you want that changed. And if the auditor, if Mr. Galloway wants to have it changed and it goes down to Columbus and can get the votes to do it, but that will change then, that will have a huge ramification throughout the state when you're passing levies and for different things, whether it's for a school board, whether it's for a narcotics unit, or whatever it's for, whether it's for a crime lab, it will have a significant impact on how those operate. So I think the legislature, the General Assembly, is going to have to look at that very carefully. But as to how many people are on the board, more heads are always better, in my opinion. But I hope I've cleared it up, and so you understand that it's a creature statute. And that's all the Budget Commission do is follow the rules. Now, there is one minor exception to about an outside levy, an outside the 10 mil levy. We call them outside levies. And that is, a new law was passed, I lose track of time, 3 years ago? Something like that, 3 years ago, dealing with departments of disabilities. And the legislature did give certain formulas that you could reduce some of their accounts, their levies, the collection of their levies, so that they, accounts didn't get over a certain percentage of things. And the first thing that Auditor Galloway did when he took over in office is hold a hearing on that. And it was clear, and it is clear, as far as I know, and I think it is still now, that the Department of Disabilities is in fact complying with that statutory requirement. But that's the only one that the Budget Commission could reduce. That's the only outside 10 mil limitation that has been voted by the people that could be reduced. If the Department of Disabilities has monies in excess of the certain percentages that are listed in the statute. So that's the only exception.
Mr. President?
Sir.
My recollection is, I think about 2 years ago, you gave us kind of a 1 or 2 page write-up of these issues. Would it be possible to share a copy with Mr. Massey so that he can see blow by blow?
Would love to, sure. In fact, there's a Budget Committee meeting Monday. Is it Monday? Monday. There's a Budget Committee meeting Monday. Are you going to be there?
Yes.
I'll hand you one then.
So while we have you at the microphone, so when we talk about Department of Disabilities, we're talking about Deepwood for all practical purposes by now.
Correct.
There's been a lot of talk about Deepwood accumulating a great deal of money, so our auditor has verified, and you concur, obviously in concurrence, that Deepwood is in compliance with the law. And again, I'm going to just restate this. There are those in the public who seem to think that those dollars are surplus and can be used for other purposes other than that which they've been approved.
They cannot. They cannot be used for any other purpose other than for Deepwood. All of these levies have been approved by the voters. The voters wanted to support the Department, the DD, I'll call it DD, wanted to support Deepwood. And the monies that have been mentioned, and I've heard them mentioned a couple times up here, one of the accounts has, I don't know the exact amount, I'm going to give you a pretty close range, but it's somewhere around $55 million in it. And that's a reserve fund that they have to have. You see, when somebody has a disability, a developmental disability, and they get into the system has to take care of them for life. For life. So when you get somebody new into the system, you're going to be having to pay for them for their entire life, for their education, for their support, maybe for their housing, for whatever is needed for those people who need that help. That's why it's there. That's why Deepwood is there. And they have to have that money earmarked to take care of somebody for the rest of their life. And you start adding more people on, you have to have that money there. And that's why that money is there. And that's why the state legislature said, we recognize you have to have a certain amount. And they gave a formula, and they passed that formula, and I don't remember off the top of my head what that formula is, but it's a certain percentage of what is the percentage of, Chris, do you remember?
Off the top of my head,
Yeah, I don't remember, but they're following it. But you have to understand, that's there to take care of all these people who have developmental disabilities that for the rest of their life. And some of them need more help than others. It's not all the same. And as you know, prices always increase on everything, always. And so that's what that's there for. The legislature did take a look at it about 4 years ago, I don't remember exactly when. And they didn't pass that formula. And Deepwood is in compliance with that. And that money is not available to anybody else, but Deepwood has to use and will use that money on these people who need the help because of their disabilities.
And as long as you're at the mic, I just want to make this abundantly clear. I'm going to give just 3 examples. It's not meant to be comprehensive or exhaustive in nature. So Metro Parks, can we use Metro Parks money for anything?
The county cannot use Metro Parks money for anything, no.
And the Budget Commission has no authority to reduce Metro Parks levies?
Not the outside 10 mil limitation levies that were adopted by the people, and they were all adopted by the people. Yes, they were voted for, yes.
And same question, Crime Lab.
Crime Lab. You cannot use that money. That money is for the Crime Lab. It cannot be reduced by statute. that it's an outside 10 mil limitation, that the voters said, we want the crime lab, we want this money to go for the crime lab, and they passed it. And it can't not be used for anything else but that.
And last example I have is narcotics.
Same thing with the narcotics. I just repeat myself again.
I understand, but sometimes you have to say it over and over and over.
It cannot be used for anything but the narcotics unit. That's correct.
Any other questions while we have our prosecutor up here?
Mr. President.
Sir.
Mr. Colson, does the Budget Commission only deal with property tax?
No.
So it's any
There are other taxes, and as I stand here, I don't have it in front of me, but it is mostly property tax, but not exclusively, no.
I just saw, and it's not county, but Rittman, I believe, is collecting a tax for 15 years that was supposed to expire, and they never stopped collecting. It was income tax.
See,
Income tax.
Yeah, I can't answer that as I stand here.
Okay.
I'd have to look that up.
Thank you, sir.
The Budget Commission statutes are not easy. They're convoluted. They're not easy. They're not real clear.
That's why we need so many attorneys.
Well, I guess. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Anyway.
And we have a non-attorney spokesperson in the audience, Auditor Galloway, given the reference of looking into some legislative relief on this in the spirit of openness and transparency. Come on up. The microphone is yours, sir.
What a treat.
It's a rarity. Now, Deputy, be prepared to remove him if we give you the
That's right. Oh, he and I have already discussed this. Everything Prosecutor Colson discussed is accurate. And when we refer to things that I'm working on, the Auditors Association, and I serve on our legislative committee, we are working on what we're calling an auditor omnibus bill. Basically, it's a cleanup bill of a lot of things in ORC, whether it's process or things that there's conflict or unclear, trying to put a bill forward that will address a lot of these things that we have to deal with, and we're hopeful on it because obviously we have a Speaker of the House who was a former colleague of ours, so he's very sensitive to a lot of the things that we deal with on a daily and monthly basis. As far as the Budget Commission, as Prosecutor Colson mentioned, it can be very convoluted in parts of ORC, and one of my goals in this bill, and I will be arguing next week with my colleagues, is to include some language as it relates to the Budget Commission to create more clarity, remove some of these conflicts, and possibly give the Budget Commission more authorities in terms of oversight. I think that will actually be I think we'll have a receptive audience when it comes to our legislature on that. I'm hopeful. And I think by and large, most outside levies are proper, run well. The amounts are being spent as intended. I mean, obviously there's the legal, they have to be, but there aren't, in most of these, there are not excessive reserves being piled up. But I do think, and I share Mr. Massey's concerns on some of what we see potentially being excessive, and that we are in a period where folks are understandably very concerned about their property taxes. And if we as a Budget Commission can get a little extra authority to try to at least have these hearings, put some sunshine on it, perhaps push back on some of these excessive reserves that I see in some places that are piling up. And again, that's one man's opinion. Then I would like to be able to do it. I think it's, again, in government, it's about accountability. And I would echo Prosecutor Colson and Mr. Massey's investigation of adding a couple members of the public to the Budget Commission, I also support that. Ironically, when he sent the email to Mr. McDonald asking about this, I had just done research on it myself the day before. And so I asked him, are you bugging my office? What's happening here that you suddenly... Like, well, what is it you suddenly... How did you know I was looking into this? And of course he didn't, but, I think that putting a couple members of public on that board could be a really good thing. And, so maybe that will be an option for us in the future. And so we'll see where it goes. We all know how the legislative process is. We're looking to introduce this legislation, get sponsors later in this month, early March, drop the legislation, and then we're going to spend X amount of months or years fighting to get it done. So it will not be an overnight thing, and I don't necessarily think it would be a panacea per se, but I think it's important that we continue to have more accountability. So, that's kind of my thought on it. As far as the Deepwood, Prosecutor Colson is right about their reserve accounts, but the law really addressed sort of allowing them additional dollars in their different reserve accounts, which they can have an amount up to. They can max out their reserve accounts, and they have done so. Those are maxed out. So when we talk about that $55 million, that is actually outside of their reserve accounts. And obviously under current case law, the Budget Commission can do nothing of that. So the reserve accounts have additional dollars beyond that $55 million and are maxed out in terms of how much money is in them. So, that's just a little point of clarification on that. But, again, I think this is a work in progress, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak on it.
Well, I think I just heard something loud and clear from two of the three members of the Budget Commission. I'm going to look to legal and even our prosecutor to save Mr. Massey the footsteps. Does this Board of Commissioners have the authority to propose legislation that could put it on the ballot to add 2 citizens to this? Is this something that we have the authority to do, or does this have to be done by petition?
It's got to be done by petition.
It has to be done by petition.
Yeah. It's a 3% of the gubernatorial. By my reading of it, and I let Mr. Hackman speak. I'm sure he'd do more research.
For new shoes for you, if that helps, Mr. Massey.
Yeah. So throughout, you need probably roughly around 3,500 valid signatures, just back of the napkin math, from residents. It would go on the ballot to create those positions, and then those positions would be created, and then eventually in the next cycle, my understanding, it would then be voted on. People would be voted on. Now we'd have to get through some of the details of. Are they paid? Are they paid per meeting, like a school board member or something? Or are they not paid? Like, what's their status? I think there's a lot that we'd have to flush out and exactly what that would involve, but all very doable.
So it sounds like there's an appetite to be supportive of this, so can we do the legal background work on this? I'm looking to legal, I'm looking to our prosecutor.
Well, it's all set out in the revised code, what has to be done in the process.
So it's pretty plain, it's not legalese, it's pretty, the 4 corners are pretty evident, clear and unambiguous, I believe is what I'm fishing for. There seems to be an awful lot of misunderstandings these days as to what the law really means.
I look at the Ohio Revised Code every day, and quite frankly, I'm not sure I've ever read a clear statute. However, you can navigate that statute and come to the proper conclusion.
Okay. No, that's good to hear. And obviously we don't have Auditor Zern present, but there's an awful lot of talk about the county having over $100 million in investments. And I trust you would agree that those dollars are for those specific agencies and not available to any other purpose than that which the dollars were collected, the treasurer manages.
Oh yeah, I mean every fund is clearly defined on what it can and cannot be spent. Well, not every fund, but most funds are clearly defined on what they can and can't be spent for. So when we talk about things like jails or whatnot, yes, you cannot take $50 million from MRDD, you cannot take $5 million from Adams Board, and then just move it over, and those are all outside accounts. So that, first of all, you can't do that. But yes, no, the county, even within the county's budget, there are defined areas for each of these things. Some things allow for you could use. You can also reappropriate, move things back from different funds and move them back into the general fund. There are different things that can be done. You guys are all well aware of that. And so to your point, yes, I would concur with Prosecutor Colson's assessment.
Excellent. Sir, thank you for being such a good sport.
Mr. President,
Sir.
before we let the auditor escape, I just want to say...
Because he wants to escape.
I can tell. I want to say to you and to anyone lobbying the state legislature with respect to property taxes, of course, I support more accountability, but I think we often skirt around one of the most important issues. It's talked about and nothing is ever done. Seniors should be exempt from property taxes. They have paid for our schools, our city and county governments their entire lives. It's not as though they've gotten off without paying taxes. But when they reach that final chapter, we all should be exempt from property taxes. It should not be a discount. It should not be 5% off. It should be a 100% exemption. And if you want to talk about how we prevent this mass exodus from Ohio to Florida once people reach their golden years, they're fleeing taxes in many cases. We should respect the incredible sacrifice that these ladies and gentlemen have given to Ohio over their entire lives with a full exemption. And I think the state legislature would be applauded from one end of the state to the other if they finally got the job done. So let me just say, I hope that the auditors, I hope the Commissioners Association, I hope everyone will finally recognize that seniors are being taxed out of their homes, literally, not figuratively. And after they've paid taxes for 65 some years, it's time to say enough is enough is enough.
I can say, at least as Florida goes in property taxes, they're not fleeing because of Florida property taxes. Florida property taxes are excessive. They're in some ways worse than ours. I just recently went through having to tell a resident here in Lake County that we have a resident who had a home here in Lake County since '92. In '96, they changed their residency to Florida. They were receiving the owner occupancy credit. As you know, that's a very small credit that the state of Ohio places if you live in your home. They did not ever tell our office that they were no longer owner occupying, and they've been receiving the homestead exemption credit in Florida, and that since 1996. The Florida assessors are very aggressive in auditing those credits because they are far more, to your point, they are far more beneficial from a credit standpoint when it comes to seniors. Their homestead exemption in Florida is far beyond what ours is. And so unfortunately, this person, we did a lot of research trying to find this particular county would only accept removing, back billing them back to 1996 on the homestead exemptions that they had gotten if I could find and show that there was a clerical error on our part. We went high and low, tried lots of different means of trying to figure out any I or T that hadn't been dotted or crossed to figure out how we could help this person. And alas, in the end, we had nothing. Nothing was improperly done, filed, or otherwise. A notification just simply hadn't been made by the property owner. So I had to unfortunately let this individual know that we would not be able to provide any documentation of clerical error on our end in Lake County, and they are facing a $60,000 bill from this county on their property down in Florida. That's a lot of taxes. So property taxes, they are a reality everywhere, and I certainly share your concerns about trying to find ways to, lessen the burden on those that need that burden lessened. The mantra of the Auditors Association is fair and equitable. That, we typically are opposed to carve-outs, whether it's corporate or otherwise, because when you do that, you shift the tax burden to other people. And the more the legislature makes different exemptions and credits and this and that shifts the burden again and again and again and again. Mr. Massey has recently pointed out, I think in some of his reporting, that We're going through a lawsuit, the Menor Mall. They're trying to get out of a lot of their property taxes. They've asked a judge in Texas to basically overrule our appraisal processes in Ohio as part of a bankruptcy, which again, we're fighting. But you know, there's an example. If you take that value off the books of that mall and they're off the hook on it, levies are passed with dollar amounts in mind. They're part of the equalization process. If they succeed, where does that tax burden go? Well, it goes to the residents of Mentor, those in that school district, et cetera, where those levies exist. So anytime there's an exemption like that, that burden is shifted back to homeowners. And folks need to realize that, which is why my office, prior to me, under Auditor Zepancic, why every time First Energy files to try to lower the value of Perry or the Eastlake plant, and it's not just, $1 million we're arguing over. Eastlake, we have valued at, around $55 million. They wanted valued at $5 million, all right? Well, if you're in that Willoughby Eastlake School District, and I agree to their $5 million value on the Eastlake plant versus what we've got at $55 million, that $50 million in value comes off, and the amount of that has to then be distributed to the taxpayers in that district, those homeowners, including seniors. So that's why we fight those, because again, fair and equitable. We cannot have a situation where, some pay little to nothing and some pay a ton. So, that's our focus as an association, but we've been pushing and pushing and pushing for homestead credit to be increased, indexed to inflation, you name it. I mean, currently this year, the income threshold in order to get the qualify for the homestead exemption is $36,100. That does not include Social Security. That's not included in that formula. It's not a lot of money for most people. If you've got a pension, for those that still have them, or you're taking distributions, you can easily blow right past that number and then not be qualified for the homestead exemption. In my mind, that number should be at least $75,000. It should be increased because it used to not be indexed to income. The state changed that in 2010 when they were having a budget crisis, and then grandfathered in people prior to that they already had the homestead, and then put in this litmus test in terms of income. So they ought to consider removing the income altogether now that the state is recovered from its financial distress. That would be a huge step. The number of seniors that would suddenly then qualify would be tremendous. If they're not willing to do that, then you've got to raise it, because $36,100 is not enough. You've got to index it to inflation, especially right now. There are ways and things that the legislature can do to help seniors that they have been reluctant to do, and we will continue to push for that. You got a lot more than you asked for. I mean, I'm sorry.
Okay, you're a wealth of information.
It'll be the last time you ask me up here.
No, that's all we got. We're not going to let you go, because you hit on two really key things. One being the utilities, as we were making assistance available to our seniors for water and sewer rates. Your auditor's office got beat up a little bit when people had to be income qualified. I always look legal. As we follow the law, you too have to follow the law.
Yep.
And some people were not income qualified. That it's age and.
Yep.
Do you want to opine on
Well,
that?
and that's again an example to Prosecutor Colson's point. These things are defined in Ohio Revised Code. As creatures of statute, as we all know we are, as agents of the state, as county officials, we are obligated to follow those to a T. And, it says the commissioners can do that, but only if those folks also then qualify for homestead. And as part of that, there's an income test. So unfortunately, we had to, I know the utilities department had to deny a bunch of people based on that income test. And that's unfortunate, but that shows folks how important it is to engage with your legislators, pay attention to what goes on in Columbus, understand that that's not arbitrary decisions by the commissioners or the auditor. It's in black and white. You must follow. So, I always encourage folks. I know when Treasurer Zern and I go out and do our meetings with seniors to talk about the homestead and other credits that we have, you know, I'm constantly stressing to them, call your legislators about, you know, these pieces of legislation, or just email them. You know, they need to hear from you, and more engagement by the public. It helps. It helps those of us who are down there pushing to be able to walk in and say, you got 3 emails from, you know, people, and even 3 emails. I mean, I'm literally meaning 3 emails from Lake County residents has an impact, right? I know a legislator goes, yeah, I've been getting a lot on that, right? They hear it, and so it's not just lobbyists sitting in their office going, you know, they hear from residents and they'll move. So I'm always encouraging folks, engage.
And if I could just add to one other thing by way of background, you mentioned the situation in Texas. We have our Great Lakes Mall. Somehow this wound up in a court in Texas. Very often people don't understand what the demands on our general fund are. We are having to pay for outside legal counsel at the request of our prosecutor's office because it makes sense to not have to find an attorney in Ohio who is also admitted to practice law in Texas to fly them down there. We have had to retain local legal counsel to represent Lake County. You're fighting a battle in Texas. We're funding the battle in Texas. This is very complicated, and the public, one, has a right to know this, but I think we have a responsibility to try to explain that to them. There's a lot of moving parts here. You blink and you miss a great deal.
Yep. No, yeah. I mean, there's a lot that we end up having to do through the legal processes, and it costs money to do it. Now, you know, I know there are some counties that have things like power plants, you know, have decided that, like, well, we're just going to accept First Energy's number because we don't want to have that fight. You know, there is a cost benefit analysis that for some has to come into it. We do the same thing. But there are some times where I think the fight is just, and you have to stick up for your taxpayers. In the case of First Energy, the interesting thing there is that they're trying to lower their value to lower their tax bill, but they get reimbursed for all the taxes from the grid operator. So it's really a pass-through. So First Energy is fighting to reduce their tax bill even though they are reimbursed 100% by PMJ. So what that basically means for folks in Lake County, as an example, if they succeed, that tax burden and the schools and everything shifts to all the homeowners and everybody in that taxing district. Versus now, if they don't succeed, that tax burden through the grid operator obviously collects that through every power bill that goes out and they oversee. Those regulatory and taxes you see in your bill. Well, that basically means, like, in the 14 states or 9 states or whatever the number is, where they're, you know, think of how many accounts that is. That means that every one of those accounts every year is paying in about, you know, $0.015 towards that sales tax bill in Eastlake to run that power plant. It's spread around the entire grid that relies on that facility. That seems to me to be a fair thing. They're trying to turn around and put it solely on Lake County taxpayers, and that's why we fight.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Come on up. This was kind of like in the middle of your stuff, so in fairness to you, Mr. Massey, we didn't forget about you.
No, I would like to...
You got that snowball rolling now.
Again, I would like to thank Prosecutor Colson and Auditor Galloway for their total transparency. That's what we've been pushing all along, and citizens need to get more involved and have a better understanding. So when we have our elected officials be this transparent and take the time to explain it to the citizens, believe me, they really do appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, while I got you, though, because I know this is a hot button for you, I wanted to be clear that the question was asked and answered. You know, can we put it on the ballot as far as adding 2 people? And I'm seeing from legal and our prosecutor, no. So these questions do get asked and answered. and we do follow the law, so I hope you'll also acknowledge that, sir.
Yes, I certainly do. I would not mean to say anything against you, Commissioner Hammercheck. You know that, right?
I appreciate
So now,
that. I wouldn't want to be accused of being a hypocrite.
I'm going to ask the audience, should I proceed with this to get 3,500 signatures?
Well, if you could address the board, hold on.
Okay.
You can hold court after the meeting, please.
All right, I've said enough. I've got myself in trouble.
No, you're good, you're
Thank
good. Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the audience wishing to address? Yes, sir.
Just to add on,
Oh, you're-
Brian White, Painesville Township. Just to add on, thank you for stating the resolutions are available online concerning resolutions 14 and 15 of this meeting. Appropriation for various general and non-general funds. Will the online resolution detail what those various funds or accounts or would be?
I'm looking to
Thank
see
you.
if Mike Matus is in the audience, and I don't see him.
Commissioner, if I may.
Please, sir.
I do know that Ms. Bell puts out the schedule or the agenda the night before any given commissioners meeting, and also Ms. Russo, I believe, puts out schedule with the back documentation attached to that, which would have the backup documentation to the various appropriations that you're referring to.
Thank you.
And again, I'm just reading what we have, which is double-sided here on.
Yes, Commissioner, can I just mention
Yes,
that the
please.
backup is kind of thick. So if you want that, I can supply it to you after the meeting, but that's not something we normally will scan because it's just a lot.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, just as an example, we're looking at cost center giving account numbers and dollar amounts, and then a narrative of what it is. This is in reference to our clerk of courts, Faith Andrews. And again, I'm just in the interest of going through that. So you're more than welcome to see what we have, and you're more than welcome to see what our clerk has.
For something like that, would I generally email the clerk and just request it? I don't know if there's an official document. I know in Wilwick there's an official document you submit.
We're pretty easy. You can ask Mr. Massey on that one.
Understood.
I keep
Thank
pulling
you.
his leg hard. I know this is probably your first meeting, but Mr. Massey walks in circles. I keep pulling on one leg. It's getting longer and stronger, so. Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Music.
John Music, 45 Coventry Drive. Just to expand on one of the things that was mentioned by Mr. Galloway, you know, maybe you don't know, I go to DC, I spend 4 or 5 days there. Each time I go, I meet with the congressman, I go down to Columbus, I give testimony on bills, and I call them all the time. And the thing about it is, I basically want everybody to know, if you have and I follow everybody, how they vote on this, how they vote on that, and I will call them out on it. Remember, these people work for us. We don't work for them. So I'm just saying, never think it won't do any good. But please contact, may it be the state, even the federal government, or even here locally in Lake County. Your voice should be heard. We the people, and the people that are elected work for us. We don't work for them. So the thing about it is, call them and let them know and give your opinion. May you email or however you want to do it. But please do so. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, I just wanted to interject. Members of the public watching may not know Mr. Music has been attending commissioners' meetings when I was still in law school. I'm a law professor now. He has shown incredible dedication to local government. He is the model citizen, someone who asks for every document, reviews every proposal, comes to the meetings, gives his input. If every American gave the same time and attention that Mr. Music did, we would live in a much better world. So I hope that everyone takes that message and considers how they can be more involved, because just coming to a meeting and expressing your opinion, as Auditor Galloway said, just sending an email can make all the difference in the world.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Anyone else? Oh, sir. Welcome.
I'm Chris Weiss from Leroy Township. Not trying to belabor this meeting any longer, but something that came to mind in the discussion about giving seniors relief from property taxes and any other taxes. I guess I would just put out there, people need to get the advice of a competent financial planner, financial advisor, because there are many vehicles to help people in almost every classification get relief from certain taxes and also to handle the disposition of their estates. With regard to what you said, Commissioner Pleshnik, you know, it would be wonderful if the state would pass a law that said that seniors didn't have to pay property taxes, for example. But then further questions would come, does that only apply to real property that they held fee simple in their names, or can it be put in property that they have in various types of trusts that are created for other purposes, AB trusts, family trusts, and so on and so forth, pour over wills, and how does that affect their protection? You know, they might, while on the one hand, they might not have to pay the property taxes, but if as a matter of law, the property still held fee simple in their name and they have to go into nursing care and, you know, the nursing process, Medicare, Medicaid clause their entire, you know, estate into that and then depletes it because they're caring for the person. One could argue, hey, you have the assets, you should give them up. Other people could say you have a right to protect them. So I know that gets into many legal intricacies, and I also realize that as a Board of Commissioners, legal counsel, you know, you're not in the business of giving legal advice to the public, but, you know, every thing brought up tends to create a larger picture and more to consider. I just wanted to kind of put that out there so that people aren't necessarily, I'm not going to say misled, but led to believe that, you know, if the state bails the senior citizen out and says you don't have to pay the property taxes, you know, they may have to hold that property in a manner which it's exposed to other things that they might not want to expose their estate to. Thank you.
Excellent point, sir. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Anyone else?
Mr. President,
Sir.
I think it's good to say that Professor Pleshnik will have a whole class on this. You could just play this tape and he didn't take the day off.
Okay, we do have a request for an executive session. There'll be no business to be conducted afterward. The purpose for this is legal, pending litigation. Do we have a motion to adjourn for the reasons so stated?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for joining us today.